Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast here to tell you about Michelob Ultra Courtside. It's getting fans closer to the NBA with a chance to win prizes like courtside seats, a trip to All-Star Weekend, and much more. Check it out at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access, Courtside 24-25 sweepstakes, no purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 and up. Begins on October 1st, 2024. Ends July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
Need parts now? O'ReillyAuto.com offers in-store pickup, same-day home delivery, or next-day home shipping. Get more parts your way at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion. I'm your host, Stephen Wallace, and today's horse racing episode promises to be a compelling and, for some of you, perhaps even a shocking one. Our guest is Karen Wiltshire, a true trailblazer. In 1978, Karen made history as the first female professional jockey to win a race in the UK, competing against her male counterparts. She joins us to share her remarkable journey, highlighting the immense mental and physical challenges she faced in a sport dominated by men. This is an inspiring story of resilience, determination, and breaking barriers, as Karen candidly recounts her battle for equality amidst a backdrop of bullying, prejudice, and misogyny. You won't want to miss it. Hello, Karen. Thank you for joining me on the Paddock and the Pavilion.
Oh, thank you for having me, Stephen.
Well, what a story we have for listeners today. I'm delighted to be speaking to the first female professional jockey to win a flat race in Britain against male counterparts. How does that sound?
Yeah, 1978.
Yeah, 1978. It's a little-known story, one which deserves so much more publicity. Hopefully it's now getting more with the release of your book with Nick Townsend, No Place for a Girl.
Yes, it seems to be selling well on Amazon. It was number one for a while on the jockey biographies, so it's doing quite well. I was really pleased that Nick wanted to write it, because to have such a good sports journalist, he makes everything just so interesting. And he asked me when he did a series for Racing Post in 2010. So, we've been working on the book for actually 3 years now. So it's but, he was always thinking about it back then, 14 years ago.
You said off air that the book nearly came to fruition even earlier. Oh,
yes. Yeah. My uncle, the notorious cabinet minister, that's faked his drowning off Miami, John Stonehouse. There's been an ITVX. Well, there's an ITVX series on at the moment, but there was 3-part series was last year. And he was the first one. When they found him because they were looking for Lord Lucan. So when he'd done the jail term, he'd married Sheila Buckley, and my mother's brother had him staying there just at Forest's Lodge, which was just around the corner from where we lived, near Hambledon. And so he was his idea that I should write a book about my racing. So it was the time, it was all very, I just remembered so much then, because I was just sort of finishing racing. So he told me to write everything down. So it's his idea, and he'd written a lot of books himself. So, but then he had a heart attack. So it was, and that's why I didn't carry on with it until Nick Townsend mentioned it. I didn't even think about it. I just thought, it was, I had to turn down at the time, my trainer wanted me to turn down the Telegraph and the Daily Mail. And so every time the press got in touch with me, I had to turn it down. So I, had sort of just thought one day when John Stonehouse, when that happened, I thought, well, one day, perhaps because it wasn't as fashionable then for girls in sport. And I just had this premonition that one day it was going to become a lot more fashionable, and probably the book would do better sort of in years to come when it was more historical. And I think I'm right with thinking that now, because at that time, I don't think I would have had the publicity at that time. So it wasn't, sports journalists weren't so interested in writing about girls in sport at the time.
I think you're right there. It should certainly have got more recognition at the time. I read the book when I was on holiday recently, and I wanted to start your story really by going back to the 14th of September 1978, when you won your race at Salisbury to become the first professional female jockey to ride a winner in this country against the males. What do you remember about that day at Salisbury?
Well, it ended up, the starting price was 9-1. Earlier it was 10-1, but I was told by Bill Wightman, he has got a chance. And so I thought, this is probably, my one big chance. I'd already spoken to Bill Wightman before, when I'd ridden him when he wasn't fit in his first time out that season. I really wanted him when he was fit, because Tappy Thomas had said to me afterwards, I'd be on him when he's fit enough, or you run well, and so I then suddenly realised that perhaps I was just going to be used to get them fit. And although Bill Wightman was very supportive, it was, concerned that he couldn't get the rides for me, that the owners want the top jockeys on. So I really, when I asked Bill Wightman directly, I got back to the yard after the Brighton race, and he just stared at me, and I realised from his look that a top professional was going to be on it when it was fit enough to win. I just said, I realise I'm wasting my time here, and run down the drive and just said, I'm leaving. And then Bill Wightman came running after me and said, come back. I'll do everything I can. You will get a chance when the horse is fit. And so, remembering that, I thought, well, this is my big chance. Goldie's fit now. And, I've got to take, it might be my only chance. So I've got to do everything I possibly can. And which didn't help when the Goldstone was always difficult getting into the stalls, and he actually refused twice. And so it was my last chance of getting in the stalls. He had to be blindfolded. And it was just luck that he went in, because, I was only given a few more seconds to try him. And then when I just rode to orders, and I knew the horse very well, and I had to keep him covered up. And but then with keeping him covered up, you can easily get blocked in. And I did get blocked in, and then I had to sort of push my way through. And I realised I was taking a huge risk, because I could hear the heels click. You take these risks when it's, I thought, gosh, I could bring myself down, I could bring the other horses down, but Goldie was such a strong horse, he'd just go through anything. So I pushed myself through, and I hit the front just at the right time, because the timing was, crucial for the Goldstone, because you just had to sort of hit the front in a few strides before the wing posts. And so I won by 2.5 lengths. And because he had a turn of foot if you hit the front at the right time, which he showed. I was really lucky that such a turn of foot, which is absolutely amazing feeling when you get that, and you just want more wins. Like it's just he was an amazing horse.
What was the reaction after the race?
Well, they just treated me like everybody else because I didn't show up as a girl. So, it's just Kay Wiltshire, and as Bill Wightman didn't want me to show up as a girl. I had cut and no makeup, and he thought it was best to get rides for me if I wasn't shown. They could point out, what do you think of that jockey to owners, and they wouldn't know I was a girl. And then if they thought I looked good, then he'd break it to them later. But so there wasn't really any fuss about that I was a girl. And when I was interviewed afterwards, it was just, my first winner. There was nothing about, it was the first, professional to win on the flat in the UK. So it was very, just, being completely treated like the boys. But then that's how Bill Wightman wanted it.
But you were creating history at the time and so little recognition, really.
Yeah. It's that, I suppose at the time, there were very few. And so I was just really, it was, Bill didn't want me to show up as a girl, and I hadn't before. And so they just treated me. And it wasn't until a month later when I had Telegraph magazine and a Daily Mail, there's a Sunday Mail magazine, they wanted to do stories on me. But so it was, I think gradually people started to realise what had happened, but not initially at the time of the race. I'd known that there was Robin Gray there, he was a journalist, and he'd known me from Bill Wightman, so he would have told the other journalists that he'd known me for a while, and so it was not the recognition. I thought just a couple of sentences in the sporting life,
but no TV appearances. Karen, nowadays you would have been on breakfast TV, daytime TV, the lot.
Yeah, well, my trainer said he didn't want me to do any press interviews or TV, but he didn't know that I did one day-by-day interview that's for Southern ITV, and because I thought he'd be at stables at that time, early in the evening, and so he wouldn't see it. And fortunately, he didn't see it. So I was very lucky.
So you managed one appearance on television then?
Yeah, because I was just really wanting, to promote to women, it's a good career to go into and try and get more people interested. And so, I was really trying to, but I didn't want to jeopardise my job.
But personally, it must have been, you must have felt a great sense of achievement to have won a race against professional male jockeys.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I felt, but it was just, I wanted more, it's very addictive, and you're just thinking about racing, you're not actually thinking about, how it was just, so I just thought, well, hopefully I'll get more rides. So that's how I was actually felt, that it would give me a chance for more rides. I wasn't actually thinking about any fame or what actually, it was just because you get so sort of channeled into, your career path, really.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. Everybody needs some variety in life. That's what I love about Chumba Casino. They know how to keep things fresh and exciting. All their games are free to play, like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire. You can claim free daily login bonuses, too. And they release new games every week. So spice things up with ChumbaCasino.com now for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Let's look at how you started in racing and how you started riding. So I'm going to go back to really the beginning of your story. How old were you when you first started riding a pony?
Well, when I was first put on a pony, my uncle, my mother's brother, put me on when I was 3. And then I really started riding at 6, at a riding school. It was behind our house at the time. And then it was closing down. And I said to my father, I want to buy one of these ponies and that I've been riding. He was quite a naughty pony. And so my father bought the pony. And then we thought, I really want to live with the pony. So he then, he bought a place out in the countryside with a few acres and stables. And so we were, and then I wanted a horse when I was sort of early teens, a show jumper. And because the pony didn't jump much, he was good at gymkhanas and showing, but, he wasn't a show jumper. I used to hunt a lot with him. And then the horse that I bought was his grandfather was Blue Peter, the Derby winner of 1939. Yeah. So he was half thoroughbred and half New Forest, but at least he had the speed, and that really, I used to race my friends with the guys. I used to hunt him a lot. It really sort of made me think, I just love the speed and the feeling and the freedom you got, because I went to very strict school. My parents were quite strict, it was just like you felt, the freedom of just galloping from miles. And I'd been in pony races with Pony Club and loved the competitiveness of the pony races. So although I loved show jumping, I preferred the speed. And with show jumping, you can only get as far as your horse will take you. I had, my horse was grade C, and so did a lot of Daily Express Fox Hunter, and we used to go to Stocklands and indoor school, and used to compete against like Harvey Smith, and they would bring, because they were bringing on their young horses in the winter. So it was really good experience. But I've always sort of craved for racing, and I was always told, well, no, you can't, because of your gender, you can't think about being a jockey. But I wasn't going to take that.
It didn't put you off then?
No. I always thought things got to change. It just can't. I mean, it's really odd because, in show jumping, 3-day eventing, and, you don't have any of this problem. I was just treated the same as the boys then. And so, it was quite of a shock when I started at the yard, just, the gender discrimination, really, because when you've been with horsey people all your life, and the boys treated you the same, but of course racing, it was just so much different.
When did you decide that you wanted to become a jockey, and then you wrote to Bill Wightman, the trainer?
Yeah, well, when I left school at 16, I went to this all-girls convent, and because I wanted to do more show jumping then, and then I always thought if I could get in a racing yard. But my father wanted me to stay on for A-levels, but so I said, well, if I do my A levels in the evenings at college, then give me time to do show jumping, and so that's what I did. But then also I had a part-time job as a veterinary nurse, and so I was going around county shows, and then I wrote to Bill Wightman when I was 19, and I said to him, I told him right from the start, I wanted to be a jockey, and he didn't really he didn't think that I'd just go there and work, just in the yard, because I said I had my own horses, and that my main ambition was to be a jockey. So he said, come and see me. He said, I have a vacancy, come and see me. But I just wanted to make it clear when I got to the interview that unless he was going to give me a ride quite soon, that's what I didn't just want to work as a groom and mucking out, and I wanted to get on the race course, and I was just so very, very keen to get on the race course as soon as possible. And also I made it clear to him that I wouldn't ride in amateur races, because at the time there was, a lot of lady races, which, I didn't see why we should be, put in that. It was as if at the time the men, were happy if women raced, but, with it's just ladies' races, and I wanted it all the time. I told him, don't ever try and put me in a ladies' race or an amateur race. I just want to be a professional jockey and ride with boys. I can't see why there should be any different, between me starting out to any of the boys you take on. And
you must have been very determined. You must have been a very determined 19-year-old, Karen.
Yeah, I was. When I think back, it's really odd, because when you actually think back to what you were like, you sort of think, well, but that was because he was, very well-known trainer, and he'd been in it for years, and I think he was a bit taken back about how I was sort of laying down the law, saying, well, this is what I'm going to do, and if you're not going to promise me that, then I'm not working for you. I think he was quite shocked, because he hadn't been used to that. It's like most of the boys were just so honoured that he would take them on, because he was such a good trainer.
Well, I've read the book, and I was shocked also with how tough life was working at Ower Farm, Bill Wightman's stables. It was a tough time, wasn't it?
Oh, very tough, yeah. But he didn't think it was tough, because he had been a Vietnamese prisoner of war. So he didn't think, and he kept reminding us that, and because he was starved when he was a prisoner. So he knew, he could empathise with what we went through when we were starving ourselves to do the weights. But, the hard work as well. He used to ride out to the gallops and watches, sort of well into his 60s, and he expected a lot from everybody. He wouldn't, you couldn't say, or you didn't, you felt, even if you had bad cold or flu, you'd still be expected to just sort of not think about your illness and carry on.
You were working 7 days a week as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I thought that there'd be more time off, but then you had to be very, very dedicated. That's
physically it must have been very demanding as well, and mentally as well.
Yeah, especially as you couldn't eat or drink much. You had to dehydrate, and that's the most difficult thing. Is finding the energy from somewhere when you're not eating, drinking much.
Your apprentice papers, they were quite restrictive as well, weren't they?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all changed now, but he virtually owned you, and you had to ask if you wanted to get engaged or married, and even if you wanted to take driving lessons, everything you did had to be under his consent. So it was, and then, I think he wanted to make sure that he had that control over his jockeys, because when you went to race course, he had to, he wanted you to ride to orders, which I found, because I'd already, show jumping, I just did exactly what I felt at the time, it's good for the horse. And, I'd done everything myself. So I had to get used to riding to orders, which, but, even if you had to, he was very sort of strict with that. So he was a very strict trainer, but he was very supportive.
But you didn't get the same level of support from other male colleagues working at the stable?
No, well, they saw me as, some of them saw me as a threat, if they were, competing for rides as well. And then others, well, what she thinks she's going to mean. When I first arrived, which I suppose to them, I arrived in a sports car and all jobbers, and they were jeans at the time and training, and then they thought, oh, she's stuck up, and so they just, a lot of them didn't like how I was, although I tried my hardest to mix in with them, and I didn't think I was stuck up, but they just got that opinion of me straight away. I just think it was, so I sort of drove up in a sports car and all job, just I was really, and they thought, well, if she's been, used to going out, show jumping and hunting, they just thought I'd been used to that way, lifestyle, and it was completely different to theirs, and they didn't think I'd be able to cope with the hard work. And then they did, they used to really sort of ridicule me and try and put me off. So I thought I wouldn't be able to take it, and then I'd just go quiet.
How did you cope? It must have been very difficult.
Well, I think the more I thought that they was trying to get rid of me, the more determined, I was to stick it out. So it's just, I wasn't going to sort of let them think that they got the better of me. Just really, well, there's no way that they're going to stop me from achieving my ambition. It's just, you had to be sort of, it made me stronger, really. It's to sort of fight for what I wanted, but I just sort of let it go in my head, really. I've always been very good at sort of being able to sort of just not really take much notice of what they said. It's quite, they say that a lot of girl jockeys are quite thick-skinned, you think you have to be.
Well, I've read the book, and I know you must have been very thick-skinned. What sort of things went on a typical day, Karen?
Well, when we were training on the gallops, you'd be riding up sides, galloping up sides, and all of a sudden, be whipped, very hard, and also they try and put their arm around you and pull you off the horse. So, you had to sort of just get ready for it, and you knew sort of when outside of the trainer, and so you just had to sort of try and prepare yourself for it. Actually,
that must have been so difficult. It's so unacceptable. Obviously, it was 1970s work for a female jockey.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's very competitive, and also they, wanted to make it very tough for me. So they didn't think, I'd last. It just made me more determined. So
You did get a lot of support from Bill and the head lad.
yeah, Bill Nash. Yeah, he was amazing. He was always, up at the gallops and watching me and saying things about my style, and he used to praise me a lot. But he had to sort of show he didn't want the boys to see that he'd do it quietly, because he said, they'll get jealous if he shows that, he's more supportive to me than them. So, but he's also very worried about that I was going to get injured before I got on the race course, because I was having to break in yearlings, which were mad, rowing up and falling over backwards. And so it was just luck, really, whether, you got badly injured or not. But, he was always concerned about that. So
One of the people you rode out with was Bruff Scott.
yeah, he used to come up and ride quite often. Ride work, yeah. He was good because he used to ride in quite a few races. Then Bill, I think, he'd before my time, he'd ridden in quite a few races and over the jumps, I think. But yeah, Bill always thought very highly of him, and they were quite good friends.
You mentioned about your weight. You were a lightweight jockey, and what was the lowest weight you rode?
I think it's about 7'2", 7'3", so I had to be about 10, 6, 11 to, with the saddle to do that weight. So it's, I'm normally about 8.5 stone. So, it's a lot to keep off all the time. But I knew that was my value to him. So, right from the interview, I said that I could get, because he wanted to know what weight I could do. And I said, I know I can get down to that. So then I had to make sure I could do, because, he was not only just on the race course, he needed it, but also for a work rider. But it was hard, really very hard going.
Yeah, what was that like? That must have been so challenging. When I read you lost, I think, a stone in a week. Is that right?
Yeah, in a few days I could do it. I just dehydrated really and hardly ate anything. And then I was jogging with waterproofs and working on. You'd be on the chaff machine with waterproofs, so I'd be sweating it off, and sometimes I was just so dehydrated that when I encountered to the starting stalls, my throat would just burn. And I think, gosh, this can't be in my body much. I was just like felt like I was on fire. But it was, and then, I used to be in the sauna a lot, and then I passed out once in the sauna. So I just stay in the sauna as long as I could. But it's been, because the jockeys then didn't used to use the gym like they do now, but I used to go to the gym sort of every afternoon when we had a few hours break in the afternoon, to try and get some advantage over the boys, but to build up muscle. So I always thought that, I'd try and get the equal sort of muscle strength to them. So I'd thought, I've got to do a bit more to what they're doing at work. But now, most jockeys go in the gym now. But they didn't really in those days.
All this is not good for your social life, is it?
No, that was I got engaged at the time when I was at Bill's, and he was really wanting me to give up all the time, because he was worried about me getting injured, but also, he knew that I just didn't want to go out. I just was dedicated to racing. And, but on the odd occasion, I'd go out, but he'd always be thinking about you didn't want to have a late night, and it's so after about a year and a half, and when I broke my collarbone, he gave me an ultimatum, and he said, I want you just to be. My wife want you to give up and get married, have children, and then I said, no, I can't do it. My life is racing, and at the time I was just so addicted to it that I wasn't even thinking about our relationship because I was so addicted to racing, and anything that interfered was just I just thought I can't carry on like this, and it's I was quite hard about it, I suppose, but at the time I just so much wanted a race, and I thought, well, if he should want that for me. But in those days, men didn't used to think like that. I was thinking, you should want what I want, but because I would have been, I was supportive over his career, but in those days it was more the women, had to. It was not sort of the equality then. I mean, as it is today. So, although I always feel that I thought like young people today, I didn't think any different. My daughter, who's early 30s, I don't think any different. I think because I wanted a life like they've got today, fortunately, because I ended up with a life like that. I can't see any difference between my life and somebody in their early 30s, really. But it was hard to get then. I mean, what's natural now for people, it was hard. It was very hard then because it just wasn't the norm. And when you're in a relationship, you're expected to just really do what your partner wanted. So I think, he's quite taken back when I said that I was choosing racing to him.
It certainly comes through in the book, what you've just said. I just want to pick up a few things about your riding career, 77, 78 and 79. Your first ride's on the 13th of May, 1977 at Newbury.
Yeah, Friday the 13th. Yeah.
Was it really? Friday the 13th?
Yeah.
What was it like when you went into the changing room on that day? It was the same changing room as the men's changing rooms. What reaction did you get from the male jockeys? It's an apprentice race, I think, the first race, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, they didn't notice that I was a girl, really. I just walked in. I was so thin, and John said, "Oh, just sort of don't look round. Just carry on as if you're a boy." John was my valet, and he was very good. He was just thinking about your race. But then suddenly, gradually, the boys started looking at me and thinking, "Oh my gosh, it's a girl." It must have been quite a shock for them, but they were trying to not. He said, "Oh, just don't look at them and carry on and just get changed and everything's you sort of." But it was it was a very, very stressful, that being in the changing room.
You are listening to The Paddock and the Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. You can follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and on our YouTube channel. Another determined jockey to have featured on the show was Gay Kellaway. As part of our What Was It Like To series, Gay recalled her historic win at Royal Ascot in 1987, when she became the first female jockey to ride a winner at the Royal Meeting. Now let's get back to another history maker, Karen Wiltshire. And during your career, you got to ride the Goldstone, your favourite, quite a few times, didn't you? Because in your first season, you came third on him in your last race of 1977.
Yeah, I rode him twice. It was Lady Packham owned him. She was Lord Leverhulme's daughter. The Sunlight Soap. He was the steward of the jockey club, and so I was sort of honoured to get the ride on him. But we really got on well together. And Bill could see that he ran well for me. So I think this is it with girls now. If you're shown, if your trainer can see that you get on well with a certain horse, then and if that horse really progresses, and that's probably, a good way of getting into some, group races and that, if you've got a good rapport with a horse. And, I was lucky there. I mean, Goldstone was quite old then. I think he was about 5 or 6, so it was lucky that, he's a strong horse. And there was another horse, Summer's Air, that came second at Epsom against Walter Swinburne, and he was another very good, strong horse. And the owner, knew Bill well, so it was easier if Bill, knew the owners, friends with the owners, to be able to sort of talk them around, because it was very difficult for him.
And weeks after your win in September 78, you then had a serious injury.
Yeah, it was really disappointing, because I was supposed to ride Goldstone at Ascot, and I really wanted to ride at Ascot, and we would have had a good chance as well. So I could have been like best professional to win there, and then I had this really bad fall. They were trying out. They wanted this horse called Avon Salmon. Nobody seemed to be able to stop him on the gallops, and even really sort of really strong. The lads, like this 6-foot lad, he couldn't stop him. So I knew that what I was up against. But Bill wanted to try a lightweight on, and sort of me to ride and work. And he said, you probably won't be able to stop him, but just head him towards the hedge into the gallops. And so I realised there was just no way. So I headed him towards the hedge, and he jumped the hedge onto the road. So I bowed out, and it was quite a shock that he jumped it onto the road. And so luckily, I bowed out, but then I was knocked unconscious, and I just remember coming round and Bill saying, "Don't move her, I think she's broken her neck." So and I thought, my gosh, am I paralysed? I was just lying there still, and then they took me. I realised I wasn't paralysed, and they took me to Winchester Hospital, and it was a really bad break. My collarbone was broken very badly, so I was off for about 4 months. But my main concern was missing that Ascot ride, which is always sort of regretted every time I go to Ascot. Think about it.
But you came back, and as you say, you rode again in 1979 and came second at Epsom.
Yeah, that was. I loved that because it was on the Derby course, and Bill said, you've got to get down to weight, which I didn't actually make the weight because I only had like 24 hours to get down to the weight, and so I was carrying a bit of overweight. But Summer's Air, I hadn't ridden much, but he was another strong horse like Goldstone, and Bill said, you sort of hold your own at Tattenham Corner. So I was really sort of trying to, to keep my ground and just not be pushed around. And then, of course, I ended up with having the first steward's inquiry the first girl professional to have a stewards inquiry at Tattenham Corner, because somebody like pushed into me, but then I kept my ground and went in to do something else. So they tried to take my second place away, but Walter Swinburne said, because he realised that he was by the stands, and he realised we couldn't really see. It was so close, we couldn't see because there was such distance between us. He wasn't with the rest of the bunch, that he knew that I was shocked that he just picked me. It's a very close finish. So he was then trying to sort of help me with the stewards' inquiry to keep my second place. And, it was quite daunting being in a stewards' inquiry. It's just like a court. Bill Wightman came with me, and he said, make sure you don't let them bully you up, just sort of hold your own. And, but it was, lucky that I was, I could see on the video that, I was pointing out, look, I was pushing myself. So I was just really sort of holding my ground and, just make so, they've realised that in the end, and I kept my second place. So.
At the end of the 1979 season, Karen, that proved to be the last season you rode, although that wasn't the intention.
No, I mean, I wasn't getting. I thought there would be a lot more rides after my win, and I was, really keen to sort of try and see if I could get more rides in the US. But my last ride was at Salisbury, not on the Goldstone, Rockaway, and he reared up in the stalls and smashed my mouth and just loosened my front teeth, which I was always told by the other lads that, you won't keep your front teeth for very long here. So I was, that's it. I was blood pouring down me the whole of the race. And then, the doctor saw me directly after the race, and they managed to sort of keep my teeth, do something in my teeth. So I kept my own teeth. But it was just, it was quite a bad rear in the stalls, and he flung his head back. But, and that was the last race. But you see, I wasn't really getting the opportunities. Bill was still finding it very difficult to get the good rides. And, it was disappointing because I thought there would be a lot more opportunity after I had that win. So I decided to go to the US and try and get some races there, because girls at the time were getting quite good rides there. And, it's much easier for them in California.
Your post-jockey career, what's kept Karen Wiltshire busy since 1980?
Well, when I came back from the US, because it just seemed that I was to get my insurance. It was quite a few months, and I wasn't sort of that keen on staying in California. It was very sort of hippie-ish at the time, and so I thought I'd come back and see whether, but things hadn't really changed here. Bill said, well, come and ride work, and I did still go back and ride work for him, and so I sort of kept, which I don't think was in the book, I forgot to put in the book, but and I did ride the Goldstone again on the gallops, but I always thinking, if I went there and rode work, and then if it looked like it was going to change, I'd get a license back. But it didn't. And my father bought this premises for leisure, and which we've still got, which is a gym, fitness studio, and also got other commercial premises there, which I let out. But he'd only just bought this in 82, and a month later I had this letter sent from an top Austrian trainer saying that he wanted me to go out and be his first jockey, which I was surprised that he even heard of me, because there hadn't been. He must have sort of just known me from seeing me racing, because there hadn't actually been that much publicity about me. So, it was a really good opportunity. And I said to my father, because he only really bought the premises because he wanted me to run it all. And I said, look, I've got this letter, and he said, oh, you can't go now, just when I've got this, and, I want you to manage everything. And he was a property developer, so he didn't want to have anything to do with that side. So I reluctantly turned down. I thought, he paid my school fees. Well, I feel I had to give something back, really. And but I always thought that perhaps in a few years things might have changed, and I might have taken out a license again. But they actually didn't change. Gay Calloway's was 9 years later, and then there was another huge gap before Hayley Turner. So, there's people in between that gave up because of lack of opportunities. There were some good jockeys, in between Gay Calloway and Hayley Turner, but it's just lack of opportunities, really. It's so so now I'm still got the leisure premises, and it's fitness and gym, and I'm a fitness instructor myself, and still taking cardio classes. So I think that once you're really fit at a young age, I think you just carry on that fitness. It's easier later in life to still keep the fitness levels. So it's I'm taking high energy cardio.
But you don't miss all that wasting, do you?
No, I don't have to waste any. I mean, no, I don't miss that at all. But of course, the weights have gone up about 3 or 4 times since then. But I mean, they still have to waste, but not so much as what I did. They realised that was very unhealthy to the weights we had to do.
What do you think then to the jockeys of today, the Holly Doyles, the Hayley Turners, who won races at Royal Ascot, Group 1 wins? Holly Doyle,
it's amazing.
Holly Doyle could be champion jockey one year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think they will. I think either Holly or Saffy, be the first girl champion jockey, and I don't think it'd be very long until that happens. No, absolutely amazed. I mean, there couldn't be better role models, really. It's Hayley. I mean, I probably cracked the glass ceiling, but Hayley Turner definitely broke the glass ceiling, with wins in group races, and then with Holly, I mean, it's just amazing what she's done, group races, and Saffy's so good as well. It's Saffy's an absolutely amazing rider. But I just think there's just needs to be more of them, really. And so this is what I campaign for. I'm still campaigning. I've been campaigning for a few years now, but keep campaigning.
Well, I'll keep it up. Reflecting then on your riding career and your win back in 1978, how do you think about it now? It seems a long time ago. You were riding against Pat Eddery, Greville Starkey, Steve Cauthen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Amazing. I loved riding against them. And, Willie Carson used to tell jokes when I was next to him in the stalls. And, but, trying to, because really I sort of learned from them, I was trying to, the top jockeys, were good to me. And, they knew I was watching. I was also trying to, with Steve Cauthen, and he was really amazed that there was only me around at the time when there were so many more in the US. And, I told him that I was basing my style of streamlining myself like him, but that was the best way to learn, was watching the top jockeys. And I was just so honoured to race against them. It's, that sort of, that's why, I think that it takes so long now, much longer with the, what they have to go through now. I mean, because I didn't go to racing school, it was much quicker for me to get on the race course. But now, they go for these 18 weeks residential. I think when the apprentice, then they do like year and a half to 2 years, sort of level 2 apprenticeship, and then there's another 2 weeks for the license. It seems to be quite a long time, and at the end of it, you want to make sure, you're going to get some rides. This is another thing that, I think that, trainers ought to, once they have an apprenticeship and gone through all that, at least they get one ride a year, I think, the race course. But also, I think at the very top level in classics, there ought to be more girls in classics getting, getting good rides in classics. And this is why, I sort of really think that, because it's been so long now, when if something is historically male dominated, and they need extra, perhaps my idea of extra 5 to 10% in prize money from owners and trainers if they got a girl up, just to try and sort of get some good rides in classics. It's because that would be lovely to have a girl derby winner.
Earlier in the podcast, you said that you had kept in touch with Bill.
Oh yeah,
after you stopped riding.
Right. Bill Wightman. Yeah, I mean, up until he died, really, I was going there and visiting him quite often. I tried to sort of go there weekly, and Richard Newman, who was an apprentice at the same time, he ended up his carer. So he sort of helped me with the book as well, because him and Bill would reminisce all the time, and so he sort of helped me, and spoke to Nick about things that I'd forgotten, because they'd spent a lot of their time reminiscing him, Bill. I mean, Bill, just that's what he loved doing, and so I would try and visit him quite often, and I only lived like 20 minutes away. And we used to go take him to the race course, and then when he wasn't up to going racing, I'd go in his place. So, and he had his horses Flutter and Digital, and I was, it was trained by Mick Shannon at the time. So, he'd be watching at home, and it was, lovely to sort of do that. I'd get interviews for him with Mike Cattermore and Nick Luck, and they'd know that he'd be watching at home. So it's, we kept in touch, and he was, because it kept his mind, because he had, it kept his mind active, actually. I think it's good racing. It's, when you get, with keeping your mind active.
You must reflect with fondness at the opportunity that Bill gave you all those years ago.
Oh yeah, no other trainer would have given me that opportunity, and I'm just I should always be so grateful to him. It's just absolutely what he did, because he just really thought that women were good riders. He always thought that women had good hands and they had a good rapport with horses. So he was always very, which, he thought, he always thought that had equal ability in racing. So he was ahead of his time, really, because I don't think many trainers thought that at the beginning. Because, I didn't have, my parents weren't involved in racing. When they only became involved with horses because of me. So it was, I was lucky that my parents were very supportive.
You certainly had plenty of hurdles to overcome during your racing career, Karen.
Yeah, well, it's such a challenge, but then it's helped me in challenges, later life. And, I just wanted to fight for equality. And I just thought it was so unjust that, we didn't have equality at that time. And on the race course, I just wanted equality on the race course, which I'm still campaigning for. But, it's gone a long way now and it can only get better.
That certainly comes through in your book, No Place for a Girl. You must be delighted with how it's been received.
Oh, yeah, delighted. Yeah, really pleased. And, I think it shows a lot of people didn't realise just what it was like in those days and the hurdles we had to overcome. So, I think, they think more highly of the girls now, of what they've achieved and how hard it's been. And just, how determined they are.
Well, you were certainly determined, Karen. You were a history maker, the first female professional jockey to beat male professional jockeys back in September 1978. Thank you very much for being on the Paddock and the Pavilion, and best of luck with the book sales.
Oh, thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you for having me.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.